What's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of Gearbreaker Nation, where we give excellent assessment and reviews. And in this video, we're going to be reviewing Halo Combat Evolved. Now, Halo Combat Evolved is the first-person shooter developed by Bungie Studios, and it essentially follows this campaign between man and this group of aliens known as the Covenant, as they sit here and duke it out in space and then land on this artificial ring world called Halo. The story does follow the super soldier named Master Chief and his AI companion Cortana as they sit here and do battle with the Covenant and try to explore and discover the secrets of Halo to try to win this war. I have to say, this game was phenomenal. When it first came out, it definitely was the money maker. It was the backbone, it was the spine of the Xbox when it first came out, and it continues to be still to this day as pretty much the face of Xbox. And Master Chief is completely badass. I really enjoy his character. He's one of those monotone characters, but it still has personality. Maybe it has something to do with his actions or his suit, or maybe even the dialogue he has with Cortana. Cortana's actually a pretty badass character in her right, and it's really good to see how these characters kind of bond and build this great dynamic between each other despite everything that they're against. The Covenant actually are pretty interesting bad guys. Essentially, there's these different types, and each one has a different way of going about fighting them. You got the little bitty grunts that are pretty deadly in large numbers. Then you have the jackals that have these shields which you have to either deplete the energy of or sit here and have to go around them. And then you have these elites that can sometimes turn invisible, and they're more tactical and have shields and a bit harder than any of the other ones. Also, there's the ones that are called the hunters, and those are pretty much walking tanks. So yeah, the Covenant actually have a pretty good roster. Halo itself is a beautifully and well designed world. It's very expansive. You can tell that it's just, if you're outside, there's always this grand feel to it. The landscapes are beautiful. The way it's constructed is done really well. And even when you're underground inside, the more mechanical looking aspect of it feels absolutely polished. It's really good. It's well designed. It also has that weird techno flair to it that just makes it that much more appealing, and in some aspects also helps make it feel claustrophobic. Now, the story is interesting. Of course, at the end of it, it has a twist, and the twist happens to be the Flood. The Flood are this parasitic race that is able to assimilate any sentient beings into their fold. Pretty cool fighting these things. They're able to launch themselves into the air, and it can easily deplete your shields in 1 or 2 hits if they come up on you. They are able to sit here and take over opponents and even take over dead bodies and reanimate them and rejoining the fight. The Florida are pretty cool. They're really challenging, and there's one aspect of the game where it's pretty much a battle royale. Master Chief and Cortana is trying to get through these battles between the Covenant and the Flood and these robot sentry things, and it just makes for an entirely intense experience. One of the better aspects of the game outside of the campaign itself is the multiplayer, which is completely badass. It's highly competitive. It's freaking amazing. I cannot tell you how many hours me, friends, and family were just going at it on these maps. I had a really good blast with it, and it's still enjoyable to this day. The soundtrack also is a good set piece. It's really good. It's really engaging. Whether you sit here and jumping into the metal battle with this really intense music that just drums up everything and makes it very intense and engaging, or where you're just exploring, that has this very beautifully drawn out score. Even the Flood have their unique music, and it makes for a very creepy vibe, very creepy and claustrophobic vibe, especially during those moments where you have to sit here and have to defeat waves in very enclosed spaces. Some negatives of the game could be centered around the story a bit, where it feels a little bit shallow or a bit cliche, but it is done really well. Also, visually, the graphics have not aged that well. So compared to what it's done nowadays, the graphics could be a bit better, but for players who just actually want to just be entertained during the gaming experience itself, it really would not be an issue. Now, having said that, it's time for the final verdict. Halo has a good cast of characters. You got Master Chief, you got Cortana, and even Sergeant Avery Johnson, who's a complete badass, who has some of the best one-liners. The dude's pretty amazing. You have really fast-paced combat. You have a really incredibly highly detailed world that's massive and beautifully designed. You have a really good soundtrack that's beautiful and emphasizes the best moments of this video game. You have a pretty engaging story with enemies that are pretty cool and really developed, along with a twist in the story that engages even more enemies to fight. The multiplayer aspect is freaking phenomenal. I have to say, Halo Combat Evolved definitely deserves a 4 out of 5. Halo Combat Evolved has been one of those games that has been hallmarked as one of the cornerstones of video gaming nowadays, and I have to say I agree with it. Guys, in the comment section below, please tell me if you play Halo Combat Evolved, what did you think about it, and do you think it is the cornerstone of video games now, that it actually jumped off some of the more popular games that's been going on now? Let me know which was your favorite level to play on and explore in this game. Me personally, I love that one level where it's snowing and you have to kind of weave through this big valley, and then there's like this temple at the end of it that you kind of got to climb up. I always liked that one. That was pretty much my favorite one out of all of them on there. And I guess I'll get you guys the next edition of Gearbreaker Nation. And remember, keep those gears turning.